Okay folks, so we spend quite a lot of time talking about why we conduct testing, but we haven't spent very much time talking about what is testing or any sort of the processes or steps that we'll usually associate with it. So that's what we're going to give an introduction to in this video. So what is testing? Let's start with an example. Here we will have a piece of software that allows us to search. So we have a user story here. So as a user, I want to be able to use a mobile device to conduct a web search and find information on Michael Jackson's Black or White and Billie Jean. So let's have a think about what the testing this functionality would involve. So some questions we need to ask ourselves. What is it we're actually going to test to make sure that we can achieve that particular user story? So the what is what we associate with this thing called test conditions. We need to have a think about how we're going to test it. So what type of people are going to test it? Do we need any specific devices? What timetables are we going to set out? What environment do we need in terms of hardware and servers, etc. Test cases, they're a bit more detailed than test conditions, so we know what we're going to test. This starts leading into what we expect to go in one side and what we're expecting to come out the other in terms of testing, what we're going to do and what the result will actually be. We need to ask ourselves how we're going to execute the test, so what steps do we actually need to follow through on, how are we going to document the results of the testing. And then testing is a large scale activity and tests can get repeated quite a lot, so how are you going to report on the progress? How are you going to know when you've actually completed testing? Who do you give those results to, and what specifically is it you need to report? So there's lots and lots of questions here, and we will spend quite a bit of time in the coming weeks drilling into the details in each one of these questions. But for now, we're going to have a bit of an overview of the whole process. So let's take a bit of an ad hoc testing process. This is going to reflect something along the lines of what you'll be doing in your upcoming assessment. So for this, let's say you're in a team of 3, you'll pick a test lead, and the first thing you're going to do is actually plan out what you're going to do. When are you going to do it? What activities do you actually need to conduct? What resources do you need to actually do it? So we start off with that from this thing called the test basis. So test basis is any document, any resource that will allow you to figure out what it is you need to test. We've talked about a requirement specification quite a lot. That's a very important test basis because it is effectively a to-do list of what your application must do in order to meet the business need. So off the back of the test basis, we create test conditions. This is a list of what we're going to test. And then off our test conditions, we can figure out test cases, which is how we're going to test those conditions and the procedures we need to follow. So test cases and procedures is, in a nutshell, how we're going to test the test conditions. After that, we do the tests, we record the results, and we report the results to whoever we need to report them to, and then that closes the testing activities for this particular phase of a project. To put it in slightly more technical terms, let's look back at our user story for searching for Michael Jackson's Black or White and Billie Jean track. So in this case, the test basis is this user story. This is the source for creating the test cases. This is what I look at to figure out what I need to actually test. So in this case, it's a user story, and you guys will be working with requirement specifications down the line as well. So from this test basis, I start to build up my test conditions. So I need to figure out what it is I need to test. In this case, I need to make sure that it's possible to search via a mobile device for information on Billie Jean by Michael Jackson. And then I'm going to have another test condition, which is more or less the same thing, but in this case, it's going to be for Black or White. So we have multiple test conditions that arise from our test basis. So now that we've identified our test conditions, we can look at our test cases. So we're starting to think about how we're actually going to test. So in this case, I'm going to, on my mobile device, open up the search function. The input's going to be Billie Jean, and what I expect to come out of the other side is a list of websites associated with Michael Jackson's Billie Jean. Likewise for Black or White, whenever I put that into some sort of search engine, I'm expecting to get a list of websites corresponding to Black or White. Now you'll note that the test cases here just has the list of inputs and the list of expected outputs that we have coming. The test procedures is the other side of the coin. The test cases, it tells us how we're actually going to execute the tests. How we're actually going to execute each of our test cases. So in this case, for test case 1, which is searching for Billie Jean, we We've got the list of instructions. We open the browser app, we go to our search engine, we input our search criteria, which in this case is Billie Jean, and so on and so forth. We conclude the test. So that's a bit more of a technical breakdown of how we get from our test basis, the start of our testing procedure, through to actually conducting the tests themselves. And we'll be going into each of these stages in a lot more detail in lectures to come. So test basis, just as a refresher, all the documents that we use to figure out what it is we're going to test. The test condition is looking at what it is we need to prove. And the test case is what we're actually going to test. So what is testing? So we're going to get into the ISTQB definitions of testing. So it's two things. In first instance, it's a process. And it's a process that allows us to work towards a number of objectives. So the process, planning and control, choosing test conditions, we can see a natural process evolving there from the conception and planning of testing through to actually conducting the testing and delivering a set of results. So all of those process activities lead towards verification. Does the software meet the specified requirements? Or, as we've mentioned in previous videos, is the software built to specification? Validation, has the actual requirements led us to a product that addresses the underlying business need or business opportunity? And have we been able to detect defects, which allows us to improve quality and reduce risk? That overall process, folks, we will spend a bit more time going through it in future videos, but for now, any questions, you have the email address. As always, do feel free